Thank you so much, Ian, for the introduction and also not relieving how many years ago that was. I will share my screen, hopefully you, and then put it in the presenters mode. Sorry, it just puts hold on. Hold on. What happened? Oops, I lost my presentation. I apologize. Here it is. Okay. Okay, can you, okay, I have to find, goodness gracious, that's not good. Let me share my screen. Share. Okay, can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, it works.
Yeah, it's all good.
That was a struggle. Talking about technology. So it will be a hard act to follow, Mani. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. As Ian mentioned, my name is Burcin Becerik-Gerber, and I would like to start with GNI for inviting me to give a talk. And I am an architect and a civil engineer by training, and I've been at USC doing academic research for the last 13 years. So I would like to talk about maybe something a little different. I would like to draw your attention to the people side, to the human side, to the user side of the built environment. That's why my presentation is named People-Centric AI for the Built Environment. And I put together this presentation with the goal of mostly provoking a discussion about how AI should be implemented in our built environment. So this is a field, an emerging field that is dear to me, human-building interaction. It's at the intersection of building science, human-computer interaction, social science, computer science, and engineering. And it represents a dynamic interplay of embodied human and building intelligence. And I'm very interested in studying how humans interact, perceive, and navigate through the built environment. And you're going to see this in several projects that I brought today as part of my presentation. And we use this information to develop new technologies to improve building design, construction, and operation. Of course, compared to a more standard concept of HCI, in which a user interacts with a machine through well-defined and screen-based modalities, HPIs are very complex and coupled. We have multiple people in buildings or built environment, and our decisions are influenced by many different factors. So another differentiator is, as I mentioned, your interactions also have an impact on your comfort, on your satisfaction or acceptability, or maybe even safety in a built environment. So there are different influencers, as I mentioned, and building behavior is one of that, and that is driven by many different factors like architectural quality, indoor environmental quality, as well as the physical environment like the weather, and also the people and their habits, preferences, needs, and so on. I'm giving you this context because this makes it more complex, or I'm trying to set the platform to have this discussion of how complex this could be. Because these interactions can affect, as I mentioned, satisfaction, productivity, safety, health, well-being, as well as energy efficiency. So why does it matter? In average, we spend 90% of our time indoors. With the pandemic, probably close to 100%. The way we experience these environments as users can be very different depending on our perceptions, depending on the context, the specific environmental conditions that the built environment provides. For example, an HPI technology with AI embedded in it has to treat patients in a hospital. That's very different than reducing energy consumption in offices than providing safety on a construction site. it also plays a major role in sensing and modifying the environmental health factors. As you know, and became probably more aware, air quality with the pandemic, I mean, air quality, daylight, lighting, temperature, humidity, water, noise, ergonomics, all of these factors have a significant impact on people's health and well-being. So with this pandemic, more people started realizing that buildings can facilitate the control and spread of the virus. And as a result, we're talking about new HPI strategies, such as voice-activated elevators, doors, water fountains, hands-free light switches, and thermostats and such. And we're also talking about new building typologies. How can we have these buildings where we can work and also live at the same time? How can we have movable walls and partitions to reconfigure spatial arrangements for reducing the probability of infection diseases and such? So that framing brings me to my work, and as I said, I don't have any of the details, but I have different themes of projects that I would like to discuss with you. So in my research, as you have hopefully understood at this point, I was hopefully able to communicate, the building becomes a machine. And I'm really interested in answering multiple questions, such as how can we mathematically model human preferences, needs, and requirements? How can we implement these models to influence satisfaction within the built environment? How can buildings augment user performance? How can we enable collaboration between humans and buildings to transform the nature of work, for example, takes place in the built environment? So these are some of the questions I try to answer in my research. So if I were to start from the beginning, like Manny said, he's describing a journey. I'm also describing a journey. I started with understanding comfort and how we can make buildings more comfortable and how to model comfort in the context of built environments. And this is the recognition that I got from TR35 recognition from MIT. Ian was mentioning, and we use smartphones to negotiate with the occupants, factoring in their perceptions and desires. And we developed an app where we collected satisfaction information related to temperature, lighting, and air quality. We mathematically modeled them, their preferences, and then we deployed a system where we modeled each user's consumption patterns as well as preferences into virtual agents that resided in their phones. Then we implemented this in a testbed building, and then these agents negotiated with the building agents to find the most energy efficient ways of adjusting the settings in a building to make the greatest number of people satisfied with the environmental conditions. We got some improved results. We were able to satisfy 70% of the occupants while reducing overall energy consumption by more than 30%. That's great, but one thing that we realized is our building systems, as designed they are, do not accommodate individualized or personalized operation of buildings because of the way that they're designed. But also in that previous work, we merged subjective people's input preferences to the app with the objective environmental sensing to be able to model their preferences, but that required participatory sensing, right? That required users to provide this information. From their point on, we wanted and understood that less user engagement is more important. We went through several iterations of sensing and learning systems. These are some pictures from very clunky earlier sensors to more variables and thermal cameras to make this process more non-intrusive and autonomous. But something that is important, I think, is the mutual adaptation between a built environment, between a building or a piece of furniture or a construction site and the users of this. And I'm really interested, I got really interested in shared autonomy, the new interfaces, intelligent augmentation, as I said, mutual adaptation, sorry about the spelling mistake there. Because buildings should be able to continuously sense the changes and in time and enable context-aware sensing of the human intent. So if we take office buildings as an example, and this is a collaboration between Arup and my group and a couple other colleagues at USC, that we wanted to redesign and rethink the typical workstation. We were very much focused on the office buildings in this case. So this is an intelligent desk where we have sensors embedded within the desk, and we use these sensing information for learning and modeling and monitoring users' thermal, visual, and postural comfort. The idea is the desk co-evolves with its users to provide comfortable working environments through local means like a local fan, local heater, task lighting, up lighting. The idea here is to promote healthier workspace behavior. So it is a negotiation between the workstation and the user. Workstation adjusts a little bit, and the idea there is the human user also adapts, and it's like a back and forth negotiation between the desk and the user about control of the environment. Here are some more pictures of the prototype that we built with all the sensors embedded inside the desk itself. And just there are different features of this desk, but just to give you what it does exactly. First, it learns the preferences. And this is and autonomy is, as I mentioned, something I was very interested in. So we developed this intelligent agent with different levels of autonomy, implemented in multiple office buildings and offices in multiple buildings. And then over time, and this was a 16 to 20 week long experiment, we modeled people's preferences, and then we automated the environment based on different automation preferences, and we mapped people's preferences as well as automation preferences and measured the satisfaction. And I can share the results or the paper with you if you're interested. We also worked on detecting and monitoring posture, because as you know, increased sitting causes high rates of cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, other chronic conditions, like shoulder and elbow pain. Prolonged standing is also not very good. It causes lower back and leg pain, fatigue and discomfort. And this is a clip, just a small short clip from an automated ergonomic assessment algorithm, specifically monitoring office worker postures, which is quite a bit of sedentary behavior. And the idea here is to communicate this poor posture to the users and negotiating or pulling them towards a healthier condition in time throughout the workday or throughout the work time to reduce the injury development as well as presenteeism and absenteeism. Okay, so if we were to live in these intelligent environments, interact with these intelligent furniture, there is a need for these environments to also communicate back with the users. So how can we better design buildings to provide novel interaction opportunities, to be more bidirectional, to be more communicative, rather than just getting input or asking for feedback? So these are today's solutions. There are behavioral solutions where building listens to its users. So you basically set the thermostats or other settings, or building speaks to its users with the hope that occupants accommodate the building's constraints. one thing that is important in this kind of collaboration is building trust and cooperation. And one question that I had was, how can we personify buildings? And there are multiple ways of doing this. And this is one line of research that we try to personify buildings through a virtual agent here. And we, so this is a situation, a research where we're trying to model what type of interaction gains most amount of compliance, and when to approach. If a building were to approach a user on a continuous basis, how can we build this intelligence in terms of when to approach, how frequently to approach, and what triggers the approach of this building. So these are two examples. Again, this is a line of research with multiple papers, which I'm happy to share. And this is Ellie.
Hi, how are you? I'm Ellie, representing your building. What's your name? I'm glad to see you here. If I open the blinds for you to have natural light, would you please dim or turn off the artificial lights?
Okay, so as I said, one example, and we run multiple experiments looking at the gender of the communicator, message framing, delivery of communications, like we approach them with text, voice, and an avatar, as you see here, as well as what happens if we incorporate relational features like a small talk or smiling and nodding. Just in short, we found that intelligent virtual agents are more effective than voice or text in communication. And participants complied more with the female agent than the male agent. And we found significant effects of building persona on the social dialogue. When building was engaged through a dialogue, users complied more with the building's requests. Again, I think this is important in the sense that if we were to have these intelligent environments that have their own minds and that are trying to help users with their objectives, how this communication should be framed. So with the unparalleled surge of these technological advances, our spaces will also change dramatically. So I'm interested also to understand, as we redesign buildings, how these designs can augment users where and when needed, and how buildings or built environments impact human behavior and vice versa. So this is an example from building emergencies, and I was very interested in understanding the relation between building design and emergency behavior and how people behave in different types of emergencies. So this is an experiment. It was a collaboration between Alan Turing Institute and Tsinghua University and my group. We explored how behavior is influenced by building design, building type, people's past experiences, people around them. In the specific case, this is a fire scenario in a train station. And we looked into fluency between spaces, adjacency, visibility, number of exits, and I think I mentioned the flow, crowd flow. So that's completely done in a virtual environment, as you see here. And currently we're looking into running experiments and collecting data, how counter security measures that are being implemented in the United States to avoid active shooter incidents. Specifically in this case, we looked into schools and offices, and a standard version of these buildings, as well as an enhanced version. And in the enhanced version, we implemented those countermeasures. For example, avoiding discharging to staircases, frosted glass for public spaces, different exits or access to the building. And we've collected data from teachers and the office workers, and we are in the process of analyzing the data, which is very interesting to see how these countermeasures actually impact safety, but not necessarily in a positive way as we wanted. Okay, I'm breezing through the slides. Hopefully I'm doing a good job presenting this. But there will also be a symbiotic relationship between, this symbiotic relationship between users and the buildings will give birth to new forms of artificial intelligence. And then the trust and this relationship between buildings and their users is going to be extremely important. But there are several research questions that I'm interested in and trying to answer. For example, how trust changes based on the type of tasks, or what is the desired level of autonomy as buildings become more intelligent, and how this autonomy should be framed. One example that we're looking into is collaboration between construction workers and construction robots on construction sites. As most of you know, that our robots and our sites and our context is quite different than some other industries. We have less boundaries between the robotic operations and the workers on the site. And also the demographic of workers are different. So here is an ongoing project where we're looking into how we can train construction workers to work with, and this gets into reskilling, upskilling, and creating a workforce that is skilled to work with new technology on construction sites. So we are, and this work has two objectives. One is to understand what constitutes a good training environment if we were to use virtual environments, but at the same time, how we can increase the confidence of workers to work with these type of robots, as well as how we can increase the trust while reducing their mental workload and increasing their situational awareness. So there are different questions being answered here, and this system we developed actually has some agents that are providing feedback to the construction workers, and comes in Spanish because we're in California. Most of the construction workers are Spanish speakers, and in English at the same time. Okay, so where do we go from here? Running through the slides. Technology is reshaping our everyday experiences, from assistive robots to smart home devices, to robotic surgery, to virtual assistants, to autonomous cars. So my point here is our built environments are going to be developed in a very similar fashion. So can we think of our buildings as our teammates, as our co-workers, partners, or friends? And this is a podcast, but I have a small clip to leave with you, and I'll play it, and then I will be ready to answer your questions. Here's.
What if your home was more than that? It was more than just an address. What if your home was like your friend?
What are you thinking?
You know, you and I enter our office building, your space would be personalized to you. Your space would know you in a very intimate way. Your space would know if you had a bad day or a good day, if you were tired and you needed more coffee, if you had appointments that day. Your space would be like your friend. It would be an extension of you.
That sounds interesting.
What if it could have a personality?
Oops. Okay. So with that, I would like to, of course, thank all my students, collaborators, and funders. And that's it from me.